I need a husband, and it will be you, understand?
I need a husband, and you need strong offspring, the giant alien widow told the struggling man. The storm howled across the barren plains of the frontier colony of Sarion 9, rattling the half-broken roofs of the miners' shacks. The settlement was poor, dust-worn and crumbling. Food was scarce, work was grueling, and hope was as dry as the cracked ground. Among the struggling men who called this wasteland home was Elias Kane, a laborer with rough hands and tired eyes. Once, he had been a farmer back on Earth, but the lure of a better future had drawn him to the stars. Instead of fortune, he found only endless shifts in the mineral pits, crushing debt to the colony overseers, and a hunger that gnawed deeper with every passing day. He had lost nearly everything: his farm, his savings, his pride, and soon perhaps even his life. The widow appears. The settlers whispered of her in hushed tones. They called her the widow of the North Ridge, a towering alien female of the Threll race, giants of muscle, honor, and tragedy. She had once been mated to a warrior lord, but he had perished in the border wars, leaving her childless and alone. Few had ever seen her up close. Some said she hunted beasts larger than ships, carrying their carcasses home on her shoulders. Others said she lived in sorrowful silence, weaving bone charms from her husband's remains. Elias didn't believe in stories. But one night, after another shift that left him coughing up dust and blood, he stumbled outside the colony gates. He meant only to find some quiet air, but instead the storm broke, and through it came a shape, vast and unyielding, walking as if the wind itself parted for her. The widow. She was enormous, twice his height, shoulders broad enough to cast him in shadow. Her skin shimmered like obsidian beneath the lightning, her eyes glowing with an amber light. She carried no weapon, yet her very presence was more powerful than any blade. And she looked at him, directly at him. The offer. You, she said, her voice a low thunder that made his chest vibrate. Elias froze. Me. She stepped closer. Her face, though alien, was not cruel. It was carved with lines of sorrow, of longing, of strength unbroken by loss. I need a husband, she declared simply. And you need strong offspring. Elias nearly choked. What? Her golden eyes softened. I have watched your kind. I've seen you struggle, small man. You are thin, weak. Your line will end in dust and failure. But joined with me, your children will be mighty. They will not hunger. They will not break. My people honor bloodlines born of courage. Yours is courage, even in defeat. He swallowed hard. I don't even know you. You will, she replied. Hunger versus pride. For days, Elias tried to shake her words. But the colony mines paid almost nothing, and the overseers had begun to dock his rations. His body grew weaker, his stomach emptier. He dreamed of food, of a life without chains, of a chance to build something lasting. And every night when the storm rolled across the plains, he thought of her, the towering widow with eyes of fire. Finally, when hunger became too sharp to ignore, he climbed the North Ridge. Her dwelling was a massive cavern carved into the rock. Bones lined its entrance, bones of beasts too large to name. But inside, the firelight was warm, the air thick with the scent of roasting meat. She was there, seated cross-legged, her sighs filling the chamber. When she saw him, her lips curved in something like a smile. You came. Elias shifted nervously. I need to understand. Why me? Because you are desperate enough to be brave, she said. And brave enough to be desperate. Life with the widow. First, it was not love. It was survival. She gave him food. Meats from great beasts, roots rich with flavor, fruits that grew in secret valleys. His strength returned. His belly filled. His body healed. She taught him to hunt with her, to wield spears larger than his frame, to climb cliffs and stalk prey that could crush him beneath a foot. She laughed when he stumbled but steadied him with hands strong enough to snap stone. And slowly, the fear in him became something else. Admiration. Respect. She was unlike anyone he had ever known. Where humans lied, she was blunt. Where men hid their pain, she wore hers openly. Where others mocked weakness, she turned it into strength. The first trial. The colony soon noticed Elias's absence. When they discovered he was living with a widow, they called him a traitor. One night, overseers came with rifles, demanding his return. "She's a beast," they shouted. "She'll eat you alive. Come back to your own." Elias wavered, until the widow stepped forward. She didn't brandish a weapon. She only looked at them. "You will not take him," she said, her voice carrying like thunder. The men trembled. For though they had weapons, none dared to raise them. Something in her gaze promised death swift and merciless. Elias saw it then. She wasn't only strong. She was loyal. She had chosen him. And for the first time in years he felt chosen. The bond grows. Seasons passed. Elias grew broader, tougher, tempered by the life she gave him. He was still small beside her, but he no longer felt weak. The widow in turn softened. She told him of her lost mate, of battles fought and songs sung in the halls of her people. Sometimes when the moons rose, she would hum a morning song so deep it made his bones ache. One night, as the fire cracked low, Elias asked quietly, "Do you still grieve him?" She looked into the flames. "Always. But grief does not mean emptiness. You have filled the silence." Her hand, vast and scarred, reached for his. He placed his smaller one within it. And it was enough. The great beast. Their bond was tested when the plains shook with a new terror. A predator larger than any Elias had ever seen, with jaws that could swallow a man whole. It descended upon the colony, tearing through buildings, scattering people like ants. The overseers screamed for Elias to bring the widow. Together they faced it. She with her spear, he with his courage. The battle raged across the plains. Fangs against steel, roars against war cries. At one moment, the beast lunged for Elias, and he thought his life would end. But the widow threw herself before him, her arm tearing beneath the beast's teeth. Rage burned through Elias. He drove a burning stake into its eye, while she, bleeding yet unbroken, struck the killing blow. When the monster fell, the colony cheered. Not for themselves, for the widow and the man who had stood at her side. Husband and wife. After that day, the colony stopped calling her a monster. They called her protector. And Elias was no longer the starving miner. They called him her husband. In time, love bloomed where survival had begun. Elias no longer stayed with her out of hunger, nor she with him out of duty. Their bond was forged of fire and battle, of nights shared in grief and laughter, of hands clasped in storms. When their first child was born, a daughter half human, half thrall, fierce-eyed and strong, the colony gathered in awe. And the widow smiled, whispering to Elias, "I told you, strong offspring." He held his child, his wife beside him, and realized that what had begun as desperation had given him everything he thought he'd lost. Home, family, future. Epilogue. Years later, Elias would stand at the gates of the colony, no longer a beaten man but a leader. His children played in the dust, strong and fearless, while the widow sat nearby, her arms scarred from the great beast, her eyes softer than the storm. He remembered the night she had first spoken to him. "I need a husband, and you need strong offspring,"